those watching. Thank you for everyone for joining us live and also those for watching the recording. I am Jeff Chang. I'm a policy and advocacy advisor for AAPI New Jersey. We are the state's largest AAPI advocacy organization. Today, we are so grateful to be joined by several offices within the New Jersey Attorney General's office that respond to bias incidents and discrimination. There's going to be a lot covered today. Today's program, we usually stick to an hour. We may go a little bit over. And that's just because there's so much to cover regarding preventing incidents, what constitutes a bias incident, how to report. So we want to get to that information shortly. I just want to let everyone know that at AAPI New Jersey, we are here to support you when you or someone in our community experiences these events, these incidents. Unfortunately, many of us know firsthand all too well how common these incidents are. It's very important to report these incidents so we can prevent others from being harmed and so that we can track incidents that may be part of a broader attack on our community. We have several community leaders today on the call, and I want to thank you for joining. And we ask that you please let your groups know and your communities know how important it is to report, no matter how small the incident may feel. Please know that you are not alone. In addition to the resources that will be featured today, AAPI New Jersey can assist you with reporting and also to seek services like mental health, victim services, talking to local police, making a report to the Division on Civil Rights, and others. Please go to our website for more information or email us at advocacy@aapinewjersey.org. And now I'm so happy to introduce Fanny Chan Jarvis at the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights. Fanny is a community relations specialist at the division where she focuses her outreach to our AAPI community. We are so grateful to you, Fanny, for everything that you do, and I'm so happy to turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Jeff, and thank you to everyone in AAPI New Jersey for being such an incredible partner to the state agency, New Jersey Division on Civil Rights, and to our partner agencies who are joining us on this call today. And I will be introducing each speaker, but if I could just name them briefly now to give everyone a heads up. We are joined by Sandeep Iyer, the Director of Division on Civil Rights, my boss. We are joined by Yolanda Melville, who is with the Office of the Attorney General, Lieutenant Janessa James, who's with the New Jersey Division on Criminal Justice, and Detective Izzy Chaudhry, who is with the OHSP, and that stands for the Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness. So thank you again to all our speakers who are joining us this afternoon to engage more AAPI audiences about the very concerning issue of how to report bias incidents both on the civil side and on the criminal side. So thank you again to AAPI New Jersey for being such an incredible community partner. Okay. And as Jeff said, my name is Fanny Chan Jarvis, and I serve as the Community Relations Specialist in the Division on Civil Rights, and we call ourselves the acronym DCR. And so if you hear the acronym in this webinar, DCR, that is the Division on Civil Rights. And as a Community Relations Specialist, it is my job to liaison to the AAPI community and beyond to raise awareness about the law against discrimination, which I will provide an overview today on, and how to report civil rights incidents, civil rights complaints, and what that means. But before I dive deeper into that, allow me to introduce my fearless boss, Sandeep Iyer. Sandeep, would you mind coming on camera? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fanny, for that introduction. And thanks to AAPI New Jersey for hosting this really important conversation. I'm extremely grateful for the work of organizations like AAPI New Jersey. And the growth of this organization in particular has been remarkable to watch in the last couple of years. And the organization does so much to advocate on behalf of our state's AAPI community. So really a privilege for me to be here and for us to be here as part of this conversation. As Fanny mentioned, have the privilege of being the director of the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights. We're the state agency that's charged, as you'll hear more about today, with preventing, eliminating, remedying discrimination in New Jersey. And I've been director of this organization since January of 2023. It's a privilege to lead this agency because New Jersey has given me so much, but I've also learned firsthand growing up here in New Jersey that we still have so much work left to do to address bias and discrimination across our state. I'm the kid of immigrants from India, and my parents came here in the 1970s in search of a better life, and they found a better life here. But they also felt the sting of discrimination, of isolation, coming to a new country, as so many immigrants, as so many AAPI community members who are new to this country do. And that experience that they had really shaped my experience growing up here in New Jersey, in America. And it's led me to commit my career to trying to protect the civil rights of communities across New Jersey that face discrimination and try to make things a little bit better for each successive generation. And that's exactly what we're trying to do at the Division on Civil Rights, working in partnership with the Office of Attorney General, the Division of Criminal Justice, with the Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness, as you're going to hear in just a little bit. We continue to face enormous challenges from a civil rights perspective as a state. And just to give you an example of that, each year for the last several years, we've continued to set new records for the number of recorded bias incidents in our state. In 2022, our data showed that there were 2,200 reported bias incidents here in New Jersey. And our preliminary data from 2023 suggests that that number continued to increase to about 2,700 recorded bias incidents. And that's just what's reported. And unfortunately, we know that what's reported is often just a fraction of the bias and discrimination people face out in communities. I'll also say that anti-Asian bias incidents have continued to be on the rise in recent years, with over 100 anti-Asian bias incidents recorded in our state in each of the last several years. So we've got a lot of work to do as a state. Fortunately, we also have really strong civil rights laws. Our civil rights laws are, in fact, some of the strongest in the country. Our law against discrimination is the strongest, in my view, strongest state civil rights law in the country. It's also the oldest state civil rights law in the country. And we've continued to make that law stronger under the leadership of Governor Murphy. Our Fair Chance in Housing Act is the first state law of its kind in the country that broadly prohibits discrimination based on prior criminal history in housing. Our Equal Pay Act is one of the very strongest equal pay statutes in the country. We have really strong protections under our law to prohibit discrimination based on pregnancy, to prohibit discrimination based on breastfeeding and milk expression, which continues to be a major gender equity issue. And we have really strong protections against housing discrimination, which we know particularly continues to impact AAPI communities across our state. But we also know that those laws, however strong they are, don't mean much if two things aren't true. First, people have to know about them in order for those laws' protections to matter. And second, we need meaningful enforcement of those laws for those protections to matter. I just want to touch on both of those points very quickly. On the first, on people knowing about their rights, we have, as a division and as a state, considerably expanded our outreach efforts over the last several years. Our community relations unit, as you'll hear about today, provides Know Your Rights trainings across the state and so much more. Our education and training unit at DCR does longer form trainings on over a dozen anti-bias topics and roll those out in virtual formats and in person across our state. And we're working together with our colleagues at the Division of Criminal Justice on the No Hate in the Garden State campaign, which you'll hear more about today. The second point is on enforcement. And as Attorney General Placken likes to say, law without meaningful enforcement is really not worth the paper that it sits on. And that's why we've been taking action across our state to make sure that we're actually enforcing our state civil rights laws. We're taking action to address home appraisal discrimination and mortgage redlining, which we know affect AAPI communities who are seeking the path to home ownership. And we know based on statistics here in New Jersey that Asian families are less likely to have access to home ownership than white families are. We're taking action to address discrimination based on prior criminal history and against holders of Section 8 vouchers. This is a really important way that people access the right to get safe, stable housing. We're taking action to address other barriers to obtaining affordable housing, like minimum income requirements, credit score requirements. We brought major enforcement actions in recent months, just to give you a couple examples, against employers and unions who have engaged in systematic patterns of practices of violating our civil rights laws. And we've brought enforcement actions against, most recently, a hospital system for allegedly engaging in mandatory drug testing of pregnant patients in violation of our civil rights laws. Ultimately, what happens as a result of those mandatory drug tests, as we allege in the complaint, is that there are false positive drug tests and the hospital ends up reporting pregnant women to the state for child abuse investigations when all those pregnant people have done is eat a poppy seed bagel the day before they go into the hospital. We brought actions against school districts for engaging in unlawful discrimination or for failing to take action to end bias-based harassment in schools. We do all of this work in very close collaboration with our counterparts across state government, our criminal law enforcement authorities, OHS&P, which you'll hear from today. But none of this work ultimately is possible without all of you who have come to this call today. We can only take meaningful action to address hate and bias and discrimination where we know about it. So reporting is absolutely critical. And if there's one thing you take away today, want it to be that reporting is essential to allow us to combat bias and hate in the state because it allows us to hold accountable individuals who engage in bias incidents. But even where we aren't able to establish a legal claim based on a bias incident, reporting is really essential so that we know where the potential problems are. So we can do outreach, so we can engage in proactive anti-bias work in the communities where that work is most necessary. So I'm really grateful to AAPI New Jersey for hosting this Lunch and Learn. I'm grateful to all the folks you're about to hear from at DCR and across state government for putting this event together. And most of all, I'm grateful to all of you for joining for this really important discussion. So Fanny, I'm going to kick it back to you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sandeep. I appreciate you being here and I appreciate the thorough overview. Our next speaker is my direct supervisor, Patricia Williamson, who is currently serving as our Deputy Director of Community Programming. And she is, as we say, one of the OG members of Community Relations Unit. And many of you may know Patricia because prior to my joining Division on Civil Rights, she was the liaison to the AAPI community. Patricia, thank you for joining us while you are away at a conference.
Thank you so much, Fanny. Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. It is great to be with you again. I see Jeff's familiar face. It's good to see you. I was asked to just say a few words about the Community Relations Unit. So we are 4 years old in the form that we are now. We are 4 years old, and we're focused on proactively preventing acts of discrimination and bias-based harassment through education and community engagement. We call ourselves CREW, and that can stand for Community Relations Unit, and at times it can also stand for Crisis Response Unit when we're able to engage after major occurrences in the state of New Jersey. CREW develops community need specific programs, and we work with different communities and different stakeholders to plan conferences, town halls, and other public-facing events to prevent bias and discrimination. We cover all 21 counties and the protected classes of the New Jersey law against discrimination. For 3 years before I became the deputy director, my primary areas of focus were race and religion. And as Fanny said, for 2 years before she came and joined CREW, I was the AAPI liaison, and I was honored to work with Jeffrey, Amber, and many others to engage in outreach to the AAPI community. So now Fanny is doing that, and we're continuing to do this outreach. And so I just ask that if you have any questions at all, or there's any way that we can continue to support you, please let us know. So thank you, and I'll turn this back over to Fanny.
Thank you, Patricia. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you for zooming in. Hi. Okay. And now I will take over for a few minutes and provide everyone with an overview of the New Jersey law against discrimination and how to file a civil rights complaint, and just expand on some of the things that Sandeep has spoken about. Following me, we will have Yolanda Melville from the Office of the Attorney General speaking. And as I mentioned earlier, Lieutenant Janessa James from the Division on Criminal Justice, and Detective Izzy Chaudhry from the OHSP. Okay, and if you can just bear with me for 1 minute while I toggle over to share my screen, and I hope this works. Please let me, you are seeing the magic behind the sauce. Let me see if I can just start from here. Jeff, if you could give me a thumbs up to let me know that you see this. Okay, great. Thank you, Jeff. So yes, hello again, everyone, for folks who are just joining us now or who are joining us on audio. Again, my name is Fanny Chan Jarvis. I am a community relations specialist in the Division on Civil Rights Community Relations Unit. And if you hear me using the acronym DCR, that stands for the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights. Thank you again to AAPI New Jersey for allowing us to join you on this Lunch and Learn, and to talk to you and everyone about your rights, your civil rights. Okay. So who are we and what do we do? Sandeep earlier provided an overview, and I will just dive a little bit deeper. So I know this is a surprise to many folks that the New Jersey Division of Civil Rights and the law against discrimination is actually almost 80 years old. We were created in 1945. And oops, pardon, what happened just there? Pardon me. There was a technical issue there. There we go, we're back again. Okay, so as I was saying, the New Jersey law against discrimination and the Division of Civil Rights was created in 1945. And this was just after World War II. And as World War II was ending and America's fight against Nazism abroad, highlighted for many veterans, especially Black veterans returning to America, highlighting the racism that they were continued to face in America. One state assemblyman by the name of James Hill, Dr. James Hill, a state assemblyman from Newark, he sponsored the New Jersey law against discrimination. As Sandeep Iyer, my director of the New Jersey Division of Civil Rights, said earlier, the law against discrimination, or as we shorthanded to call it, the LAD was the first state civil rights statute to go into effect and prevent discrimination in employment, and has since expanded, and I'll go into that, has since to prevent discrimination in employment based on race, creed, national origin, and ancestry. The bill was unanimously, that is very interesting, in 1945, was unanimously approved by the legislature and signed by then Governor, and went into then Governor Walter Edge, and it went into effect that very day. The law also created the Division Against Discrimination, which was the name that the New Jersey Division of Civil Rights was previously known as. Okay, so today, fast forward almost 80 years, today the Division of Civil Rights falls under the New Jersey's Department of Law and Public Safety, which is housed under the Office of the New Jersey Attorney General. As many of you may know, the Attorney General is currently Matthew Platkin, and he was appointed by the New Jersey Governor, Phil Murphy. Our mission here at the Division of Civil Rights is to prevent and eliminate bias, prejudice, and discrimination in the state. We envision a state where all people are treated equally, and we enforce three major anti-discrimination laws. The first being the New Jersey Law Against Discrimination, or LAD, and that is the law which I will focus on today in my brief presentation. The second law is the New Jersey Family Leave Act, and this is, in broad strokes, it is job protected leave. Okay? The act states that an employee can generally take up to 12 months of job protected leave. And this is separate from the federal Family Leave Act. And if you want more information about the New Jersey Family Leave Act, I invite you to visit our website, which is njcivilrights.gov for more information. Same with if you wish to get any additional resources and information from our agency about the New Jersey Law Against Discrimination, or this third law, the Fair Chance in Housing Act, which again, broad strokes, states that no housing provider, be it a landlord or a home seller, can prohibit, no landlord or housing provider can ask on an initial application any applicant's criminal history. And we can go further into detail about the Fair Chance in Housing Act at a later time. Okay, just for the sake of time, let's see, did this move forward? Let's try again. The beauty of Zoom. All right, sometimes we have trouble, don't we? Technical trouble. Let's see if I can pause this, stop sharing, and we will try once again. Hello. Oh, it's my computer that's acting up. That is why. Okay. Okay. Let's come back to you. Pardon these technical errors. Okay. Let's see if I can come back to you and once again share. Do we see that? Yes. Yep. Okay, and I am just going to toggle forward. Come on. There we go. Hello, PowerPoint. Okay, so thank you for tuning back in. The law against discrimination. Essentially, as they said, it is unlawful for any employer, any housing provider, be it landlord, a home seller, a real estate professional, or any place that's open to the public. That includes an agency, a museum, right? A medical facility, a mall, a restaurant, the list goes on. It is unlawful, okay, for any place that I mentioned, employment, or any person, a housing provider, or any place that's open to the public that provides public goods and services, to treat any person disparately because of one of their protected categories. What is a protected category? That is a legal term, and I'll explain with the next slide. Yes, PowerPoint is still working. All right, so we have 21 or so different protected categories. And so the law against discrimination says that, again, no employer, no housing provider, no place that serves the public can treat you disparately, treat you awfully because one or many of your protected categories. And I'm going to read this list in case folks are not able to see it or in case you are joining us by audio. The list states disability, race, color, religion, creed, national origin, nationality or ancestry, gender or sex, gender identity or expression, sexual or affectional orientation, pregnancy or chest feeding, liability for service in the U.S. military, marital, civil union, or domestic partnership status. And let me parse this section out a little bit further. And in some cases, your familial status. So this will apply in housing, but not in an employment or in places that are open to the public. Same with age, that is a protected category, in employment. as is genetic information. And then the last category, lawful source of income. Earlier, Sandeep mentioned Section 8 voucher, which counts as a lawful source of income. So no real estate person, housing provider, landlord, etc., is allowed to say, no, I will not take this tenant because they have or you have a Section 8 voucher. And as I have heard recently, that there is a segment of the Asian elder population who receive Section 8 vouchers. So if you know of someone who has been denied housing because they have a Section 8 voucher, I encourage you to encourage them to file a civil rights complaint with our state agency. Okay. I'm going to go to the next slide. So with this slide, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into how the law against discrimination protects us all from discrimination in the employment space. The LAD, again, the law against discrimination, prohibits discrimination in all aspects of employment, and that is including but not limited to recruitment, job postings, interviews, and hiring decisions, promotions and terminations, compensation, including salary and benefits in all terms, conditions, or privileges of employment, including membership in the union. And one thing that I forgot to mention earlier with the protected categories, and I'm just going to go back to that slide, if I can, if it'll cooperate, yay. So at the top of my slide, under protected categories in the header box, you'll see it says actual or perceived. And this is an important distinction, okay? So whether or not someone discriminates or commits bias or harassment against you based on one of your protected categories, it could be based on your actual protected category or your perceived protected category. So for example, what that means is if someone refuses to give me service, let's say a bakery, right? They deny me service because they say, oh, you know, we don't serve Latinas. They take me, they assume that I am Latina. And because of their racism, they say that point blank. Well, that is a violation of my civil rights, even though their perception of me as a Latina woman is their perception and is a misperception. I am, of course, actually Asian. Nevertheless, that is still a violation of my civil rights because they refused me, they denied me service, they treated me disparately because of my race or ancestry. So let me go to the next slide. I'm going to jump ahead. The LAD, the protections from discrimination in housing. Many of you may be real estate professionals. We know that a good number of Asian Americans are real estate professionals as realtors, as landlords, etc. Please know, I'm sure you already know, but please tell your colleagues that it is illegal to discriminate or harass anybody when you are renting or buying a home. And if you are a renter or buyer, please know that no real estate professional or housing provider has the right to discriminate against you. That means they cannot refuse to lease to you based on one of your protected categories. They cannot deny you financial services. They cannot charge you higher rent because of fill in the blank protected category. But you know that somebody else of a different protected category is not being charged the same higher rent. A landlord and real estate professional cannot offer you different amenities. They cannot refuse to make generally required repairs because of your protected category. Housing providers, the last bullet point here, it states housing providers must also reasonably accommodate your requests. Reasonable accommodations, this is part of the legalese that some of you may be familiar with. And it essentially states that unless there is an undue burden on the real estate professional, housing provider, landlord, etc., that they must engage in a conversation with you as a tenant, with you as a potential home buyer, okay, before they deny you your request for reasonable accommodation. And a reasonable accommodation could be anything, right? So what is an undue burden for a small landlord versus an undue burden for a large landlord, of course, could vary greatly. What is a reasonable accommodation for one person versus another can also vary greatly. An example of reasonable accommodation for someone, a tenant in public housing, could be handrails, right? Because they have mobility issues. Handrails may be a reasonable accommodation, but the law against discrimination essentially says you have the right, and you have the protections that support your rights, to ask for the reasonable accommodations of your housing provider. And again, everything that I'm going over today is just a brief overview, and we are happy to dive deeper into these discussions when we do know your rights presentations. And I'll talk about that in a moment. Okay. Next slide is law against discrimination. How does that protect you against religious discrimination? I'm just going to pull that piece specifically in places of public accommodation, knowing that our audience is largely AAPI today. Okay. We know that we are religiously diverse in our communities, and we know that oftentimes we are targeted because of our religion, if not our race, or our sexual orientation, our national origin, and the list goes on. Your protection from religious discrimination in a place that's open to the public means that not a school, not a college or university, not a store or business, a restaurant, summer camp, a hotel or motel, a medical provider, as Sandeep mentioned earlier, a hospital or doctor's office, not even a government agency, okay, including police departments. They are not allowed to discriminate against you or to treat you differently, disparately, or to commit bias or harassment against you because of your religion, okay? A reasonable accommodation for someone who, let's say, by faith and tradition, wants to pray 3 to 5 times a day. A reasonable accommodation of an employer might be that they accommodate their schedule. They work out their work schedule so that they are allowed to pray as their faith demands. In a place of public accommodation, I have seen folks who take out their mats, and pray as they need to, when they need to, in places that are open to the public. No, let's say, not a mall owner or a retail store is allowed to say, wait a second, you cannot do that, right? Again, this is about reasonable accommodation. Have the conversations, right? Let's see. Let's continue. You're getting a lot of Fanny today. All right. So I'm going to almost wrap up here. And this is important to distinguish. Not all bias incidents, okay, are bias crimes. So, of course, I sit in the space of New Jersey Division on Civil Rights. So we are focused on how the law against discrimination protects us all. And if you feel like your rights have been violated by an employer, a housing provider, or a place that's open to the public, you have the right, if a conversation with that person does not resolve the situation, you have the right to file a civil rights complaint with our state agency. Unfortunately, bias incidents can sometimes, escalate to something far more serious and become a bias crime, right? So a bias crime includes a criminal offense to it. And if there's a bias crime, that should be reported to the New Jersey Division on Criminal Justice. Okay. And before I bring on Yolanda Melville, Lieutenant James, and Detective Chaudhry to talk about that, let me just give you a preview into our NJ Bias Investigation Access System, or for shorthand, we call it the NJ Bias. This is where you will file your civil rights complaint. This is what it will look like if you go to our website, bias.njcivilrights.gov. I mentioned earlier, the main website for DCR is njcivilrights.gov. So to go directly onto this NJ Bias Access System, just add the word bias in front of it. This system currently is available in English and Spanish. To request assistance in a different language, please email the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights. I'll provide that information at the end, and we can make advance arrangements so that we can provide assistance with filing in a different language. Once you go into the system, you create an account. This is what the next screen will look like. And please note that bias crime reporting can be also reported on the NJ bias system. So again, just to be absolutely clear, NJ bias, once you enter the system, you can report both a bias crime as well as a civil rights complaint. The civil rights complaint, or you will see the 5 icons above: housing, criminal background, which I mentioned, the Fair Chance in Housing Act. If your rights have been violated under that act, you would choose that icon. If your rights have been violated under housing, you would choose that. Under employment, you choose a third one. The next one is the New Jersey Family Leave Act, which I mentioned is job protected leave that is different from the Federal Family Leave Act. And the far right and last icon is place of public accommodation. Okay. And so if you feel like a medical facility has treated you disparately because of your protected category, this is where you would file your complaint. This is what you would click: place of public accommodation. So again, this is, I know I was going through this quickly. This is a brief overview of New Jersey Division on Civil Rights and the NJ bias system. I mentioned earlier that the Community Relations Unit, we offer Know Your Rights presentations, which are fuller, about an hour plus long presentation. Pardon me. And we come into your space, whether it's your community group in your, pardon me, in your neighborhood, if it's your house of worship, we're open to coming to grassroots organizations, big organizations. We will do fuller Know Your Rights presentations. Excuse me, 1 minute, I have to cough. I'm sorry, I couldn't even mute myself there. These fuller Know Your Rights presentations are community-friendly presentations. We will avoid the legalese. We will give actual examples of civil rights cases where we have helped people resolve their complaints, where we have either awarded complainants, as we call the person who files a complaint, we have awarded them perhaps monetary damages, or where we meaning the Division of Civil Rights, have held the respondents or the employer or whomever the complaint is filed against, we have held them accountable for their actions, which means perhaps holding them accountable for changing their HR policies, holding them accountable for publicizing their wrongdoing or correcting their actions. In these, if you're interested in arranging a Know Your Rights presentation for your community group, be it small or large, please do contact me, right? Sorry, let's proceed to the next slide. Come on, Zoom, come on. Now it's stalling yet again. Here we go. Right. Another way that we'd be happy to engage with community groups is to table at your community event. AAPI New Jersey knows me well because they have invited me to table at their many events, from Lunar New Year to Diwali. And I've been out and talking to folks, and I am happy to crisscross the state. I've been all the way down south, even though I am based up north. And the same with my colleagues who are in the south, they come up north. So I am part of the Community Relations Unit. If I am not available to join you at your event, we can certainly work it out if our schedules permit that a colleague of mine can join you. Also, if you're interested in asking Sandeep to be a speaker at one of your events, you can certainly email me and I will see if his schedule allows him to join you. I am wrapping it up, right? And I apologize for the technical issues, as this is just a disclaimer that we make at all our presentations. Please be advised that All employees of the New Jersey Division of Civil Rights, we do not provide legal counsel or legal advice. This presentation was for informational purposes only, and we do not comment on ongoing investigations or litigation. Finally, here is my information. On the right-hand side, you will see my direct email, my direct cell phone number. And my email, if folks cannot see it, is my name, Fannie, Fannie, .Chan Jarvis, CHAN, Jarvis, JAR, V as in Victor, IS. Oops, there's a double ampersand that, double at sign there. Forgive the typo. So it's Fannie.ChanJarvis at njcivilrights.gov. And my direct cell is 609-960-2112. On the left-hand side, you will see our website, njcivilrights.gov. Our email, very simple. If you cannot reach me, you can email our general community relations inbox, which is communityrelations@njcivilrights.gov. We have a phone number. This one is easy to remember, 1-833-NJ-DCR for you. And of course, we're available on 7-Eleven, Relay, and we are on social media, Facebook and X. Okay, so I thank you for your patience, and I am so happy to turn it over to Yolanda Melville next. And let me just stop sharing the screen, and then let me properly introduce her. Let me stop sharing the screen, and we will exit. Okay. Have I stopped sharing the screen successfully? Yes, right? Great. I think so.
I still
Is it
see
still
it.
there?
Yes.
Okay, let's.
Okay.
Did I do it?
I see myself.
Yes.
I think I'm good.
Okay. You see yourself? Great.
I do.
Could I introduce you?
Absolutely.
And then feel free to expand. Thank you. Okay. Yolanda, as many of you may know, is the Senior Counsel and Director of Community Engagement in the Office of the Attorney General. She serves as a liaison to stakeholders across the state to connect them with the office's initiatives. Yolanda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Fannie. Good afternoon, everyone, and everyone who's watching us on the pre-recorded. My name is Yolanda Melville, as Fannie mentioned. I want to thank AAPI New Jersey and the Division on Civil Rights for inviting me to speak, and thank you for your tireless work in eradicating bias and uplifting our beautiful communities. Greetings, everyone, as I mentioned. I also want to make sure everyone knows my colleagues Raymond Royster, Deputy Director of Community Engagement, and Corelli Nagueras, our Community Engagement Specialist, are joining us today. We are also privileged and honored to assist and partner with all of the state agencies who you've heard from, DCR, and you'll hear from in the future, DCJ and Homeland. We are also privileged to partner with AAPI New Jersey, and thank you, Amber and Jeffrey, for your tireless leadership as well. New Jersey is one of the most diverse states in the country. I know that I don't have to tell this Zoom audience. We are home to 9.3 million New Jerseyans, and we represent a wide range of cultures, ethnicities, and backgrounds. But much like the rest of the nation, as Director Iyer mentioned previously, New Jersey has experienced a significant increase in bias incidents and bias crimes for several years. At the end of September, Attorney General Matthew Placken announced the launch of an awareness campaign and training initiative to combat bias throughout the state. That campaign is called No Hate in the Garden State. Hopefully that's not the first time you've heard that term. However, I'll tell you a little bit about it. The No Hate in the Garden State campaign was developed to raise public awareness about bias incidents and bias crimes, which are rooted in hate toward others based on a victim's race, ethnicity, sex, gender, sexual orientation, or religion. The campaign uses television, print, radio, digital, and social media ads to increase public awareness and to encourage the reporting of these incidents and ultimately stop hate before it starts. Two divisions within the Office of the Attorney General, one you've met, the Division on Civil Rights, and the Division of Criminal Justice, who you'll hear from shortly, have collaborated on this campaign to educate the public on the resources available to victims of bias incidents and bias crimes. Utilizing the latest data, which Director Iyer mentioned a little bit of that today, and a strategic approach, which is devised through community engagement in mind, our office will tackle head on and better equip our residents to identify, safely intervene, and report bias incidents and crimes. The grant funds, totaling $750,000, support this large-scale effort and a comprehensive public awareness campaign. Recognizing, reporting, and responding to bias, they are all critical. If we are continuing to move forward as a state and a nation where diversity is celebrated and not just tolerated. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself, as Director Iyer mentioned. I am also a daughter of immigrants. And when my mother went to work, and she's a nurse, she took me to my first babysitter, who was Filipino American. So I understand the importance of having a mosaic that we have here in New Jersey, of making sure that we all feel safe and we all have the proper resources in which we can eradicate bias together. We have so much to do together. Again, Director Iyer mentioned those statistics. We know that anti-Asian American bias is on the rise, but we need each and every one of you who are on this line to help us encourage messaging on how to properly report any incidents that you see or our community members see. And we will do our part to meaningfully engage with each and every one of you. Again, my name is Yolanda Melville, Senior Counsel to Attorney General Matthew Platkin. If we have not met, I look forward to meeting you in the future. And if you need anything from our office, please let us know. Thank you, Fanny.
Thank you, Yolanda. Right. Our next speaker is Lieutenant Janessa Jones. Yes, hi.
Hi, good afternoon.
Welcome. Allow me to briefly introduce you.
Sure.
Lieutenant Jones has been with the Division of Criminal Justice for 25 years, and she serves in the Bias Crimes Unit. Thank you for joining us, Lieutenant Jones.
Thank you. And I do have a short PowerPoint. I think if I can share it. If not, then we can.
Hopefully you won't experience my tech issues.
I don't know. Is it doing anything?
I see your slide. Oh, not now, but
Not
just
now.
a moment, right, just 2 seconds ago, I did.
Okay.
Yes, now.
You can see the whole slide?
And your notes.
Oh, all right. Let's flip that. Sorry about that.
No worries. To the audience, thank you for your patience. And as Jeff mentioned at the start of this program, it does look like we will be going over 1 o'clock, so we invite you to stay on. We do still have a lot of important information to share with you. Thank you.
I'm trying to switch the screens. There we go. And how about now? How are we looking?
We do see your screen and also your notes. And the next slide.
Oh,
Are you?
I tried to flip-flop it, but it's not.
It's fine if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, my name is Janessa Jones. I currently am serving as the lieutenant for our Bias Crimes Unit. And just want to share our mission. The mission of the Bias Crimes Unit, which is within the New Jersey Division of Criminal Justice, is to coordinate statewide efforts to eliminate crimes motivated by prejudice against others based on what we call the 9 protected classes: race, color, religion, sexual orientation, ethnic expression, and national origin. What are bias incidents? So bias incident is any conduct, whether it's speech, where some person's conduct, images, expressions, gestures that demonstrate bias against individuals or groups based on their non-protected classes, the race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, gender expression, and national origin or ethnicity. I'll use non-protective classes going forward. A bias incident versus a bias crime. There's a difference between a bias incident and a bias crime. All bias crimes are bias incidents, but all bias incidents are not bias crimes. So an incident is an attempt or a completed action that is motivated by bigotry and bias regarding a person's real or perceived race, and again, those non-protected classes. An example of a bias incident would be any name calling, offensive language, inappropriate gestures, things that would be considered offensive to someone. A person is guilty of a bias crime under the New Jersey law if they commit or attempt to commit or conspire with another or threaten the immediate commission of an offense with the purpose to intimidate an individual based on their protected class. Common types of bias crimes would be harassment, terroristic threats, vandalism, criminal mischief, arson, assault, and homicide. So in order for us to charge for a bias crime versus an incident, there has to be some kind of criminal element. We can't charge for name calling or because there was an offensive picture, things like that. If it has a criminal aspect to it, that's when we consider it a bias crime. In order to report bias crimes, we want you to reach out to your local police department. The bias crime unit, we work well with the local police. We need an actual incident report in order to get a criminal investigation going. So we want you to reach out to your local police departments, and we want you to provide them with as much information as you can in regards to the incident. That would be the incident date and time, the name of the victim, and if you know the name of the offender, if it's unknown, any kind of identifying information that you can provide, and a summary of the incident. All law enforcement in New Jersey are required to report any bias incidents to us on a bias incident form. And what happens is when they report that to us, it goes to a portal that is monitored by the state police, and then that gets forwarded to us. So every day around 4:30 p.m., I get a boatload of emails coming to my inbox, as well as our bias crimes unit. So we're always monitoring 24/7 any bias incidents or bias crimes that are reported to the police. Bias crimes, you can also report it through the DCR portal, which was just explained by Fanny. So you can also report that way, and that information is then relayed to DCJ for review and investigation. And we also have the bias crimes hotline, which is 1-800-277-BIAS. This next slide, I'm sorry you guys aren't seeing my screen the way I would like you guys to see it. But sorry, went back. I don't know if you guys can see that, but we do keep track of the statistics throughout the years of the bias crimes and bias incidents. And in 2024 to date, I believe it looks like there's been 95 incidents or crimes reported through the portal. So that number is up to September of this year. So we expect it to be about the same, if not more, than what was reported last year. And these are all incidents and crimes that are reported to our office. And one great thing, I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, but there's a bias dashboard. If you go to this website, NJOAG / bias data. It is a dashboard which is a compilation of all of the reported incidents within the state of New Jersey. And you can search that through by town, you can search it by types of incidents, whether it be a LGBTQ incident or crimes against Asian Americans. It's broken down in different ways. Something that is very interesting. You can kind of play around with it and, educate yourself on what's going on in New Jersey. Our bias crimes unit, just like DCR, we do a lot of outreach. We go to houses of worship, religious institutions. We train the police departments. We do various community events, events in schools. So again, as Fanny was mentioning, if you are interested in the bias crimes unit coming out and doing some education in your communities, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll be glad to try to set something up. And again, here's my contact information: Lieutenant Janessa Jones, the Office of Attorney General, Division of Criminal Justice. It's Jones JT because there's a lot of Joneses, so it's Jones JT at njdcj.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Jones. Oops. Yes, I'm off mute. Okay. And our last speaker of the day is Detective Izzy Chaudhry. Some of you may know him. Please join me in congratulating Izzy. He was recently promoted to Detective Sergeant with the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness, which we earlier referred to as OHSP. He has almost 20 years of experience in this space. Amongst his many roles, he serves as the statewide coordinator for the Interfaith Outreach Interfaith Advisory Council. Izzy, are you on?
Hi, Fanny. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Good to
hear
see
you.
you.
I do not see you.
Oh, let me see if I could turn on the video. I don't think my video is working.
We'd love to see your lovely face.
Okay. I think
Here we go. You're coming into the focus. Almost. You are backlit.
What's that? How's that? Is that better?
You're still a little dark on my end, so a little dark and blurry. Could I trouble you to close your curtain all the way?
Yeah.
Thank you, audience members, for your patience. Ooh.
All right. How's that? Is that a little bit better?
A little bit. We'll make
Sorry.
do.
I don't think I have the most advanced computer, believe it or not. So thank
Glad
you.
you can join us.
Thank you for having me here today. So today I'm going to discuss some of the resources that we have and some of the resources that we have very collaboratively with the other agencies that are on the call today, including the Attorney General's Office, the New Jersey State Police, as well as the Division on Civil Rights and the Division of Criminal Justice. So before I begin, like Fanny mentioned, I am with the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security Preparedness. Part of my role in my office is that I oversee outreach for my office, particularly what's known as the Interfaith Advisory Council. So the Interfaith Advisory Council started about back in 2012. I started it with my partner, the late John Page. We started it because back then we saw a rise in violent activities towards houses of worship, rise of active shooter situations, and we wanted to begin that dialogue between law enforcement and the faith-based community, particularly on the subject of security. Fast forward to 2018, we had about 250 members with the advisory council, the Interfaith Advisory Council, and then the director at the time appointed me as the statewide coordinator to come up with a strategy to really push that and get a lot of the resources out to the faith-based community. Since then, we have well over 5,000 members, and that touches all 21 counties, all faith-based organizations across the board here in the state of New Jersey. With that being said, we meet at a quarterly basis. over throughout the state, discussing some of those resources, but also the current threat environment. Our next meeting coming up is actually on November 6th at our Hamilton headquarters, near New Jersey State Police Troop C, where we'll have actually a panel of state leaders, including the Attorney General, members of the state police, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney, and 3 prosecutors from Hudson, Monmouth, and Somerset County. Really asking them various types of questions that's going on with the faith-based community to really address all these issues that are going on. That being said, anybody can join and become a member of the Interfaith Advisory Council. All you have to go is on our website at njosp.gov, register, and we will be more than happy to include you. And this is one of our methods of pushing out those resources that I'm about to discuss. So when it comes to those resources, our resources span everything from training to physical assessments to grants. So I'll cover each individual of those resources. So I'll start off with first discussing active shooter. Like earlier, I mentioned that violence has been, unfortunately, a place that has become a norm in houses of worship. So we offer a training that's related to how to handle yourself during an active shooter. The concept it basically is run, hide, fight. The program is designed to actually get the folks to understand what to exactly do. The second program is called House of Worship Program Emergency Operation Plan. One of the things happened a couple of years ago is Governor Murphy signed a law called S721, pretty much making it into law. Any house of worship of 500 or more requiring an emergency operation plan. In collaboration with FEMA, so Federal Emergency Management Agency, and DHS CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, we actually conduct a program really highlighting and training folks how to put an emergency operation plan. Now, although the law says 500 or more, I think it's very imperative that everyone does have an emergency operation plan. And this emergency operation plan is just not related to security related to active shooter, but encompassing all sorts of emergencies, including medical and fire. We do have templates for that. That's available on our website at njosp.gov. There's other templates available too. If you need, you can reach out to me directly on that. So another program the director asked to launch was Stop the Bleed Kits. Reason being is that most people are under the assumption that people really get killed by gunshot wounds. In fact, most people die from bleeding out. So we were able to acquire $400,000 and purchase Stop the Bleed Kits that we are distributing free to all houses of worship. Something very easy to do, just register within our office, and we will coordinate with the county and get those over to you. We will send you an MOU. You just have to electronically sign it. It comes back to us, and you get the kits for free. In addition to the not just distributing the Stop the Bleed kits, we also are doing training. So these trainings are about 2.5, 3 hours. We're doing them all over the state. And if you would like to host one of those at your location, you can reach out to me directly, and we'll be happy to coordinate that. And some of the other programs that we have are relative to building a relationship with law enforcement, particularly at the local level. So one of the programs we launched a few years ago with my partner, Madassa Mullick, over the state police, it's called Chai with a Cop. It's variations of that depending on the community that we're working with. So we've done Cafe con Leche with a cop, we've done empanadas with a cop, barbecue with a cop, but the concept is basically bringing in local law enforcement, county law enforcement, state law enforcement, no agenda, and just trying to build those relationships with the law enforcement and the community. Another program that we have is similar to that. It's called Law Enforcement Meet and Greet, Building Stronger Communities Together. Purpose was that a lot of folks don't understand what law enforcement does. So there's a presentation on federal and state law enforcement using bias as an example. And then really building the relationship with the local law enforcement. That program is more county-wide, so we'll bring in the various law enforcement at the local level within the county, and folks can start building those relationships. Definitely a question and answer session to that. So whole purpose of that is building those relationships. The third program, and this is collaboration with the Attorney General's Office, Division on Civil Rights, Division on Criminal Justice, and this New Jersey State Police, where, as I think folks have already mentioned earlier, bias crimes are on the rise. So a lot of folks don't understand what bias crimes are, bias incidents are, and what civil rights you have. So actually giving about an hour and a half to 2 hour uh, presentation on what bias incidents are, bias crimes are, civil rights, suspicious activities, what the resources are available to the community, and how the process works. And that's something we've been doing for the last few months. So if you're interested, of course, reach out to us and we'll be more happy to do that. So when it comes to the security side, and I'll go real quick on this, is that um, when it comes to security, we have two programs that are very important and critical. One is site assessments. So it's throughout the state, our office, the state police, depending on where you're located, Urban Area Security Initiative, professional folks will go out, walk through your location, provide all your security gaps, and actually provide a report. And that's important, and the reason it's important is relevant to the grant program. We have two grant programs. One is a federal grant program known as the Nonprofit Security Grant Program. That is a FEMA, so Federal Emergency Management Agency program. What that purpose of that grant program is security. You could use the funding to actually purchase target hardening equipment and security personnel. The three requirements for the Nonprofit Security Grant Program is long as you're nonprofit, so 501(c), you don't have to be a real religious institute, long as you're nonprofit. That site assessment I was just referring to earlier, and if you can't get one in that timely manner, you could do a self-assessment. And the third is a UEI number. So for the federal grant, you could apply up to $150,000. And what that covers is your camera systems, panic alarms, keyless entry systems, doors, locks, fencing, lighting. Something new that happened a couple of years ago is generators. So there's quite a bit of things that you can actually ask for part of that grant process. And this is all free, of course. The second program is the New Jersey Nonprofit Security Grant Program, structured very similar to the federal. The three requirements for that are the same, which is the 501(c), designate your organization's nonprofit, the site assessment, and the UEI number. Now, the difference between the federal and the state is that one, within the state program, there's two applications. One is for target hardening equipment, and the second is for security personnel. So the target hardening equipment, you can apply up to 100,000. And for the security personnel, you can apply up to 20,000. Now, just to make it clear, when it comes to security personnel, that's not meaning that you can hire permanent security. That is to supplement your security for high holy days or special events. The state grant is a 2-year period to use that funding, and the federal is a 3-year period. The last three things I want to cover real quick. Something that I instituted this year, and we have been working on it. This is a coordination and collaboration with FEMA. We're doing tabletop exercises throughout the state. So once you have all these trainings and target hardening, grants in place, and site assessment, et cetera, we'll actually do a tabletop exercise where we'll come out and actually test out your facility based on certain scenarios. And that ranges from active shooter to fire to medical, depending on how you want to structure that particular tabletop. Two things I'm instituting very soon. It hasn't been finalized yet, but something that I believe that the faith-based community has been kind of yearning for since this last year. One is mental health awareness and training. So I had a meeting with the Health and Human Services. We are going to launch a 3-part series regarding mental health training for houses of worship or faith-based community. That should be coming up no later than Q1 for 2025. The second thing hasn't been launched yet. We're going to probably do a pilot program in December sometime, but that's a cybersecurity. So a lot of folks are also asking about cybersecurity, considering the current threat environment. And I think that's all I have for the resources. Fanny, back to you.
Thank you, Izzy. And we will try to wrap up. I know that we are over time. So I thank you all for your patience. And just to summarize, if you or anyone watching this video on a recording wish to get in touch with the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights, the Office of the Attorney General, the Division on Criminal Justice, the Bias Crimes Unit, or Izzy Chaudhry, with the Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness, please contact us We dropped our contact information, I believe, into the chat, and I believe Jeff has done so. Thank you very much for dropping both our contact information as well as our different resources. If I could just sum up some additional resources available through njcivilrights.gov, right? That includes, if you toggle over, as Jeff mentioned, on our website under the resources tab, you will see different guidance documents, including, first off, let me mention, we have fact sheets that spell out different civil rights protections under the law against discrimination. And these fact sheets are available, many of them, in 14 plus languages, including, I would say, 8, if I'm not mistaken, different Asian languages, including Chinese, simplified and traditional, Korean, Hindi, Punjabi, Urdu, Gujarati, Tagalog, and I am missing one, forgive me, right? That's just off the top of my head. But again, if you go to njcivilrights.gov, our fact sheets are available on the website, right? I see in the chat that there are 2 brief questions. Let's see if we can get to them. If I could just finish my summary. The guidance documents that are available on our website include the home appraisal discrimination that my director, Sandeep Iyer, mentioned earlier, as well as a report that might interest families. It's about addressing bias in schools, in K through 12 schools, as well as on campus. These are very detailed reports and detailed guidance for both families as well as school administrators on how to address bias, what specific steps they can take to prevent and address past occurrences and harmful acts of bias, harassment, and discrimination in their spaces. Jeff also mentioned, thank you for the plug, our free trainings offered through the Division of Civil Rights, and that is through my sister unit, the Education Training Unit. And their trainings are free and open to the public. Feel free to register. Some of their trainings include discrimination in the workplace, microaggressions, and supporting LGBTQ plus youth. Right? Lastly, also on our website, you can watch past programs and webinars that the Community Relations Unit has hosted, including ones with AAPIs in New Jersey government, as well as AAPI social justice advocates, right? And again, if you'd like to bring Community Relations Unit into your space to do a fuller, detailed Know Your Rights presentation, whether it's a one-time presentation or as part of your annual programming, we're happy to work with you because we do absolutely believe that awareness, that education are the key to prevention. And the more that we know about our rights, even if we choose not to file a civil rights complaint, the more that we know about our rights, the more that we can speak up armed with that information. And once we are able to effectively advocate for ourselves, hopefully we can also effectively advocate for our fellow community members or people that we share space with. So I'll leave it as that. Jeff, you mentioned 2 questions. I'll see if I can address them.
Sure. I think we're gonna, Shara, do you mind just ending the recording now?